Hi everyone, today I want to talk with you about intuition and making decisions. I know that's one of the most difficult things to do when you are trying to make a decision is getting clear about, is this my mind? Is this my overthinking mind? Or is this my inner guidance that is guiding me? I have been doing readings since 2004 professionally, and that's really probably the number one thing that people come to me for readings is trying to get clear about decisions that they're making in their life. And I wanted to do this live today to talk about that, how you can get in touch with your intuition and your inner guidance for yourself in making decisions. A lot of us aren't really sure when we go to make a decision if we're getting in touch with what's best for us or if we're doing something that we think is going to be connected to our worry, our state of mind that's overthinking. And one of the number one things you need to do to get in touch with your intuition is to calm your body, relax your body, and calm your mind. So that's why if you can take time to meditate, or you can take time to get silent and to be with yourself, that's the number one way to get in touch with your intuition. Because when we're in stress or worry or fear, it clouds our judgment, it clouds our intuition, and it gets really hard to make decisions. And that's when we tend to go back and forth and back and forth. We question ourselves and we want to know, is this really the best decision for me? Or am I overthinking of it? Am I getting into fear? When you can relax and you can calm your body will help you get in touch with your inner guidance and your intuition. Because your intuition is going to connect you to your physical body. So a lot of times, if you've noticed, people may feel sensations. Maybe you feel goosebumps. Maybe you feel in your solar plexus area, which is right above your belly button, right in the center of your body. You may get that gut feeling. You may get a feeling of feeling very settled, or you may get a feeling of feeling very uncomfortable. Maybe you've been in a certain situation where you notice there's no logical reason, but you've maybe been somewhere where you just don't feel comfortable, or you feel like you want to get away from a particular person or out of a particular situation. That's your intuition guiding you. I've had that situation at different times in my life where I've gotten not a good feeling about somebody. Years ago, I lived in an apartment building with my husband, and there was this neighbor that I just didn't really care for, like, hey there, Liz. And my intuition started telling me, be mindful of this person. He lived around the corner, didn't have a good feeling about him. One day, he showed up at my apartment when I was there alone. He didn't have a shirt on, and he wanted to borrow something like, sugar or something like that really he would not have needed to use. That's an example where your intuition is maybe guiding you about a particular person. Our intuition, though, we overcomplicate it. That's one of the things. We overcomplicate what we think our intuition is. And our intuition is really that inner voice inside of you. And when we get calm and still, it's easier to hear that inner voice. It's easier to hear our intuition. I really feel that we're all born with this innate sense. Animals have it, children have it. What happens to us as we get older is we doubt ourselves. We second guess ourselves. And we begin to wonder, is this me? Is this the right decision? And then we go back and forth, and we kind of create this mess in our mind, and we're overthinking things. So that's where you want to take that quiet time. I had a decision to make recently about a business decision, and I was doing the same thing, going back and forth in my mind. And yesterday, I took some time to meditate. I took some deep breaths. I quieted my mind. I got out my journal. And then once I knew I felt calm, and my mind was a little bit more still, and my body was more still, then I just started writing. Because I do a lot of connecting with my guides. which is connected to my inner guidance. And I was asking for guidance about this particular decision. What happens is the more that you connect to your intuition, to your inner voice, you'll actually be able to do that. You'll be able to have, get a piece of paper out and write down what you're hearing. That's something everyone can do. Everyone can access that. Everyone can connect with your spiritual guides, which is your spiritual guides are connected to your inner guidance. Okay? You just have to ask that inner part of you. You have to connect and then ask and then listen. So it's when we listen and we're really in that still point where our emotions are calm and we're still, that we can trust that inner voice. So what is that inner voice or that intuition going to sound like? First of all, it's going to be very direct and to the point. And it's going to perhaps be very subtle. It's not going to be like this necessarily loud inner voice where you're feeling like you're hearing something telling you what to do, because your intuition, your inner guidance never tells you what to do. It gives advice. How does it give advice? Let's look at this situation. It will be uplifting. It will be inspiring. It will be calming and grounded feeling. Your intuition is never going to guide you in a way where you're going to feel in danger, where you're going to feel unnecessarily afraid, where you're going to feel judgmental, critical of yourself or other people, or comparing. That's the voice of your ego. That's not the voice of your intuition. The voice of your intuition, again, it's connected to your own soul. It's connected to your own inner guidance. And we all have that built in to ourselves. That's why it's really good to check with our physical body. How does our body feel with that guidance? Do we feel calm? Do we feel grounded? And also, does this make sense? Your intuition isn't going to advise you out of the blue to radically shift your life to a point where you're in stress mode. That's not your intuition. When you have big decisions to make, your intuition is going to guide you step by step to make those choices, to make those changes. If we've gotten ourselves into a situation in life where we feel we have to make radical change, then our intuition is going to gently guide us to be able to shift and transform and get that change that we need in our life. That's how our intuition works. Another example of how your intuition is going to guide you is through sometimes other people or other resources. So you may be guided to start, paying attention to someone that you've found on the internet that seems like a wise person for you to listen to, or to, maybe you're watching their videos online. Maybe you're guided to a particular book, or you're interested in a particular class. Our intuition will also guide us to other people to help us. That's another way that our intuition guides us. Now, sometimes our intuition will guide us with a sudden thought that just drops in out of the blue because there's some problem that we're trying to solve, and our mind can't necessarily solve it in the usual way. When we get quiet and we listen within, sometimes we can have a sudden thought drop in, and that sudden thought is our intuition guiding us to that solution. So an example I've given before is when I wanted to go to art school years ago. This was back in the days when the internet was brand new. I wasn't online yet because it was brand new, and I was still using the Yellow Pages. And I had an art teacher who had promised to give me the name of a photographer to take slides of my artwork so I could do my portfolio to apply for art school. And he wasn't getting back to me, and the time and the deadline was coming, and I knew I had to solve this on my own. So a sudden thought came in my head, out of the blue: go to the phone book, open up the Yellow Pages. And I started looking under photographers. And the first three I called were like studio photographers, family photographers. They didn't do that type of photography. It's a specialized kind of photography. And this is the day when you use the camera and you had actual slides. It wasn't digital then. Maybe the fourth person that I called, the person I got on and said, you know what, actually this is a processing lab. But he said, maybe I should actually mention that I have a little side business of my own where I work out of the basement of my home and I actually take photographs for artists of their portfolios and I take slides for them. So that was that answer that I was looking for. And I went to that man's home and he took the slides and he took the photographs. That helped him. This was his side business because he was really a photographer. And that helped me. I got excellent slides that I was able to use for my portfolio for art school. And I actually got a scholarship. So that was a sudden thought that dropped in out of nowhere. That's another example of intuition. My intuition came in through to guide me to go to get my master's degree in psychology. I've shared that on some of the other lives, where it was a sudden thought to go use the internet and out of the blue to start typing in the name of this university I hadn't heard of before. And I found out about this master's degree program. Now here's where common sense comes in. So I looked at this and I realized, for me at the time, I was married, I had a niece, we'd relocated, but it made sense. This was somewhere that I could afford to go. I could take out student loans to do this affordably. And better yet, it was only about a 15-minute drive from my home. And it fit with things that I was already doing. But that's an example where my intuition was also guiding me in that situation to look something up, go to the internet, and then I found a solution to something that I was looking for at the time. So sometimes our intuition will come in like when we're in a meditative state, or I meditate a lot, and I actually connect to my inner guidance and I write down, I'll ask my guides for decisions that I have to make and I'll write that down. If you're not at that point yet where you're in direct connection with your guides, don't worry, you're in direct connection with your inner guidance and your intuition. And that's just as good as being in connection with your guides. Your guides are around you and with you, and they're connecting with you through your intuition, okay? Let's think of another example of how your intuition can help you in making decisions. Let's say a lot of times our decisions around relationships. It might be not just family, it might be work situations, it may be friendships. There's a lot of times, it's another common question I get in my readings is questions about relationships, whether it's family members, friends, colleagues, because we're always in relationship with people. And one of the big decisions we often have to make is around people, right? So how do you want to listen to your intuition when you have a decision to make about relationship, being in some type of relationship with someone? I don't necessarily mean an intimate relationship. Again, like I said, it could be decisions you have to make with someone, whether or not to work with someone, whether or not to be friends with someone. There's all sorts of relationship questions. So what I would ask you to do to help you make that decision is to get as clear and calm as you can before you make that decision, okay? So what does that mean? A lot of times our emotions will get in the way, especially when we're thinking about other people. And what you want to do is get to a place where, as much as you can separate yourself from all the emotion that maybe gets stirred up, or all the worry that gets stirred up. So whatever that you can do, and again, meditation is a great way, listening to guided meditation, maybe for you it's music, where you get your body calm and relaxed. And you allow your mind to quiet down. It doesn't mean that there are no thoughts whatsoever, but just you're calmer. You get into that calmer state. And you can begin to ask yourself, your own inner guidance, for wisdom, for guidance about this particular situation, and feel into it. So a lot of times when I do readings, people will ask me about that, and I will feel into the energy of the situation. And I will feel the energy, of this particular person, and I'll feel the energy of my client. And it validates for them their own feelings. So that's what you can do, is you begin to feel into the situation. How do I feel when I'm around this person? How is this person making me feel? Do I feel calm and grounded? Do I feel supported? Or am I made to feel criticized? Is this person making me feel less than? Is this person making me feel stressed out? And then that's your guidance, that's your intuition. Then the next step is, what do I need to do in that situation if I have to be around this person? Do I need to create boundaries? Do I need to become more assertive? Do I need to maybe make some different kind of agreements with this person? But it's really important to listen within quietly to your own intuition, to your own inner guidance, okay? Because that is going to give you tips and advice and insight into the situation. And that's why I keep referring back to your body, listening to your body. Let's think of another situation. Sometimes I've worked with clients in coaching. In fact, this has happened a number of times with coaching clients, and they'll have physical symptoms or they'll have health situations. Now, I'm not a health coach. I'm not a medical advisor. I don't do anything like that. But what I do is I guide my client back to paying attention to, again, their intuition, their inner guidance related to maybe that health challenge or maybe the bodily challenge that they're having. And you can have this kind of dialogue with yourself. So let's say, you're having a persistent, maybe a sore back, or there's some kind of pain that you're having. And again, you need to seek medical advice. This isn't in place of medical advice. But let's say you want to get to the underlying, why is this happening emotionally, psychologically? You can begin to dialogue with your body. And you can begin to ask your own body, what is it I need to know? What am I learning from this situation? Why does this keep happening, right? So maybe some of you have noticed shoulder pain, neck pain. That's something I've had in the past. And then when you get in touch with yourself, you begin to notice, I'm having this particular stress. Maybe I'm overworking. Maybe I'm in a work situation that's stressing me out. Maybe I'm saying yes too much to something that I need to begin to say no to. Well, that's your body's wisdom trying to get your attention, to pay attention to something that you maybe need to renegotiate, boundaries you maybe need to recreate, or something that you need to change in your life. And that's your body telling you. Again, your body's connected to your intuition. Let me think of another example with intuition. A lot of times people have to make career decisions or work decisions. They're coming to me for readings about that. And there's a lot of compromise that sometimes people are making. Now, again, your intuition isn't going to necessarily say, quit your job and have no income, be in a stressful situation just because you don't like your job. That's not necessarily your intuition speaking to you. What your intuition is telling you is, this isn't right for you. Let's come up with a plan to change the situation. That's your intuition. Okay, so don't be concerned that if you make a decision, your intuition or your guidance is saying you've got to abruptly go change everything and you're not going to recognize your life yourself and you're going to be in this extreme state of stress. No, that's not your intuition. That's not your guidance. Your guidance is going to, again, tell you to make some small steps and make small changes. I'll use an example of a man who came to me many, many years ago for a reading. This man did counseling, keep this anonymous, and he was a man in his 50s. And he was feeling stressed and a little overburdened in his work situation. And what my guides told me is that he would love to lead groups. He loved being outdoors. And he would be really good, actually, at doing some kind of retreats, maybe outdoor retreats, guiding people in this way, in addition to what he was doing before. Now, when I told him this, he said, yes, I've been wanting to do that for years, but this is what he said next. I don't know how I'm going to do that. And then he came up with all of these excuses and reasons why it would be difficult at his age to make that kind of shift. So that's where his mind was getting in the way, creating doubt and creating fear. But his intuition was guiding him and saying, there's this another aspect that you could add to your career that would bring you enjoyment and fulfillment. You see, that's his intuition. Then coming to me for a reading, my intuition is just validating what he already is sensing inside of him. I'll give you some more examples of intuition in the work that I do with people. So when I do readings for people, I'm always asking my guides, because I'll go in meditation beforehand and I'll begin to connect before I do a reading for someone. And I'll ask, one of the questions I ask is, what is within their heart? What are they really truly desiring in their life? And there will be answers about their gifts and their purpose, maybe kinds of careers they'd be good in, but there are also those other underlying things that people want in their life. Like maybe they would love to live closer to the land, or maybe they've always wanted to have a house by a lake, or maybe they really want a vacation. So those kind of things will come up. And what happens is sometimes when I do readings for people, I'll begin to tell them what I'm being told, what would bring them joy in their life, or what would bring them some more fulfillment. And it's not uncommon sometimes, both men and women, I've seen this, where tears will start to fill their eyes because they're like, that's a dream that I've had for so long, but I thought it was just wishful thinking, or I thought it was too late, or I didn't know if I'd actually be able to do that. And what I tell them is, no, that's your soul, that's your inner guidance, guiding you to something that's going to bring you joy. And don't discount that. That's really important to you. And don't give up on that dream. Okay, so that's another example of intuition. I've had some people in reading situations want to do something, like I've said before, for so many years. And they just keep discounting it because they think it's wishful thinking, or they think it's a pie in the sky kind of dream. And I'll tell them, how would I know about this? I've never had hey Barbara, I've never had any contact with you before. All I have is your name. How would I know this? This is spirit. This is your soul telling you this is important to you. So those are sort of some of the bigger dreams that people come to me when they want to work with me, that I help guide them back to themselves. Because really, that's what your intuition is doing. No matter what decision you have to make, your intuition is guiding you back to yourself. What feels true, what feels authentic, what's going to help you feel grounded and secure and peaceful in your life, that's where your intuition is guiding you. I just see it so often where people are doing things where they're compromising themselves. Whether it's in work, whether it's in relationships, whether it's overgiving, overdoing, and they're compromising themselves. And that's when we can get ourselves sick, or we can get like the neck, shoulder pain I talked about before. We can feel burdened or tired. We feel resentful. Those are examples too of your intuition. Your intuition's letting you know through how you're feeling that something that you're doing isn't working anymore. And when you get quiet with yourself, you'll start to get ideas of how to take those small steps, small action steps to begin to change that situation. And it may not be overnight. Some of these situations take a while, depending on the decision to change and shift. But you've got to pay attention to your feelings. If you're feeling overtired, overworked, if you're feeling burdened, if you're feeling resentful, irritated, those are clues from your intuition that something needs to shift and change. And then the next step, when you can get quiet and really listen to yourself, you'll start to get ideas about how to make that change. And they're going to be, like I said, they're going to be small steps. The bigger the decision, the more time you're going to have to begin to take those steps to make that change. So I felt like myself in my 20s, I knew I needed to make a change in my work. I wasn't sure how to do it. So for many years, I was really blocked on my intuition. I just kept doing these particular jobs, feeling very underpaid, feeling very, stressed out about my future. And I just kind of ignored it, to be honest with you. But here's something that happened to me. One day I was in this situation where I used to kind of sub as teacher assistants. And I overheard this one woman talking, didn't know who she was, and she was talking about traveling. And I thought, gosh, I would love to have that kind of freedom. I'd love to be able to have that kind of income. But at that time in my life, I didn't have either. And I just felt this little bit of like envy inside of me. And the more I started paying attention to that feeling, I started realizing something in my life had to change. And I realized I had to start changing my career and my work situation because I was tolerating things that really weren't the right fit for me. And I was making those decisions myself. But the more I started listening to myself, the more I realized I got to start taking some steps to change the situation because my life won't change otherwise. And that's when I began to get really focused. And that's when I, at that time, got really focused on putting together a portfolio and getting teacher recommendations. And at that time, that goal was art school. Then as that shifted, I began to realize I really wanted to help people. And I really loved personal development and personal growth and spirituality. And that led me to getting my master's degree in psychology. You see how it gradually you can begin to shift and change certain things in your life if you begin to listen to yourself, because that's your intuition, is listening to yourself. Another issue I see a lot that I've had to actually deal with a lot in my life, and I see it in my clients, is we're listening to everyone but ourselves. We're putting other people's needs and other people's demands and wants before our own. So, it's really common for women. A lot of us have children, even if you don't have children, you may be giving in other ways to family or friends. And I see it a really common issue with a lot of women is you're overdoing. You're so busy and committed to work, to friends, to family, to volunteering, and to saying yes to so much that you're exhausted and drained, and by the time the day ends, there's just no time left for yourself anymore. And I've been in that situation a lot myself. And when you're doing that, you're really not listening to your own inner voice. And what's happening is it's hard to hear your inner voice because you're putting at the top of the priority other people. It's like everyone else is up here and you're way down here. And that's why it's hard to get in touch with your intuition, because you've got everybody else's obligations and demands filling your days. And then when you finally have some time to get in touch with yourself, you're exhausted. So for me, one of the number one things I had to start doing was I had to start saying no, and I had to start cutting out certain obligations in my life so that I could have time to devote more to things that I wanted to do and needed to do for myself and for, career, for family, whatever. I just had to literally start creating that time. And when I started creating the time, and then I was able to actually hear again my own guidance more and make those kinds of decisions I needed to make. So one of the number one things, and this is a really practical piece of advice I'd give you for listening to your intuition and making decisions, is to start scheduling time for yourself. Literally put it into your calendar if you have to. And do it when you're not so exhausted at the end of the day that you can't even think straight anymore. Maybe work it into your morning routine. Maybe if you can put it into your evening a little bit earlier in the day. I used to have a job where I would do it on my lunch hour. I would eat my lunch, and then if the weather was good, I would walk through the neighborhood near where I work just to get quiet and get more in touch with myself and what I needed to hear. There have been times where, maybe if you have a work environment where you pull yourself away from people for part of that time. I used to do that too. If the weather was bad, I would go separate from my coworkers a little bit just so I could have some quiet time. So sometimes it's just a matter, really, of creating that time and making that part of your routine. Because when you get away from other people and you get away from other demands, and you give yourself that little pause, then you get used to hearing your intuition, hearing your guidance. And the more that you do that, the more you'll see that the guidance will repeat itself. So if it's something important that you need to do and you get in touch with yourself, you'll notice, wow, I kind of am hearing the same thing over and over again. That's your intuition. It's not going to one day tell you one thing and the next day tell you another thing and the next week something else completely. It's going to steadily encourage you toward the same kind of goal. It's not going to go back and forth and change. And that's your mind. That's where our mind gets in the way. But the guidance and the intuition is going to stay steadily guiding us toward, the best next steps for the best outcome. So if you're compromising yourself a lot and you're noticing uncomfortable feelings, those uncomfortable feelings, that's your intuition, that's your guidance. And paying attention to it and then asking yourself, what is it then I can do to shift, renegotiate? That's going to then guide you to what to do next. How can I begin to shift and change this? So sometimes in the early stages, one of the last things I'll mention that I think really helps people is years ago when I really started learning how to get more in touch with myself, is I started getting a journal out and I literally just started writing my feelings down of all the different kind of feelings I might have, from anger to irritation to sadness to joy to peace. You just write those feelings out. And then I started asking myself, how am I feeling lately? And I would just pay attention to that, throughout the day or every day. And then the next thing I started writing down was, how do I want to feel instead? So particularly for feelings that feel stressful, if I noticed I was feeling that too often, then what I started writing down is, how do I want to feel instead? And I started writing those feelings down. And if it was connected to a particular situation or a particular person, I started paying attention to how I felt in that situation or with or around that particular person. I noticed the feelings that I was having. And if I didn't like those feelings, I then asked myself, how do I want to feel instead? So if I was feeling, some people are very dominating or irritating or demanding, right? Some people are very demanding or self-centered. I began to notice how I felt. I didn't like that feeling. Then I began asking myself, how do I want to feel instead? How I wanted to feel instead was empowered or assertive or to speak my mind or whatever. Then I began to create a plan for how was I going to renegotiate things with that person or situation, or did I need to leave and not be around that person or to leave that situation? So one of the big tips I would give you is pay attention to your feelings. And if you're feeling less than good in particular situations, your intuition then can give you guidance about what to do instead. And sometimes it's changing how you feel and not allowing someone to irritate you or not allowing someone to trigger you and creating that calm, centered place within yourself. Or sometimes it's getting away from a particular situation or changing it altogether. But what happens is when we ignore our feelings, the problem just kind of magnifies. And then sometimes it becomes so overwhelming. We're forced by our own self to pay attention to it and then go, wow, I don't like what's going on here. I need to change this situation. But you don't always have to let it, get to the point where it becomes overwhelming. So that's what I want to leave with you today about following your guidance, following your intuition, is really pay attention to yourself. Get in touch with your feelings. Pay attention how your body feels throughout the day, and really start writing down how you want to feel. I want to feel peaceful. I want to feel happy. I want to feel centered. I want to feel freedom. I want to feel abundance. I want to feel creative. Whatever those feelings are. And write those down. And as you write those feelings down, begin to remind yourself and let yourself know that you can change and shift those feelings inside of you internally. You can find that place inside of yourself where you can feel calm and centered and peaceful And then the more you allow yourself to feel that in those small moments of your day, even if it's small moments, you get used to those feelings. You want more of that feeling. So then if there are certain situations in your life that need shifting and changing, you'll change it. You'll be more motivated, inspired to change it because you're getting used to feeling more peaceful, more grounded, more centered. And you don't want to go back to a situation or to an environment or whatever that is where you feel less than. So the more you respect yourself, the more empowered you become, the clearer it is and easier it is to begin to make decisions for yourself, because you'll make decisions from a place of empowerment. You'll make decisions from a place that feel good to you, where you're not compromising yourself so much. And that's one of the number one things your intuition is going to guide you to in decisions, is helping you to feel grounded, centered, more peaceful, helping you to feel empowered, helping you to feel more confident. That's where your intuition is going to guide you. So that's what I want you to really start emphasizing in your life is, how am I feeling and how do I want to feel instead? And if I can't immediately change a situation, can I find that place inside of myself where I can find that inner calm, or I can find that inner peace? And start supporting yourself with practices where you have time to yourself so that you can feel that way. So that's what I wanted to let you know today about intuition and making decisions. And I just wish you all the best, because I know sometimes we have big decisions in life to make. But I really want you to begin to trust yourself, because you know best what's best for you. And if you can get into those calm, clear states more often, it's going to be a lot easier to hear your inner voice, to hear your intuition, and to trust it, and then start acting on it. So thanks everyone for joining me today. I wish you all the best with your day. I send you much love, lots of blessings, and take care. Bye-bye.